People have been arguing over this issue for more than a dozen years, and I don't think that there will ever be a correct answer because everyone interprets it in their own way. What is more important, the goal or the route to the goal? The hero of our story today was firmly convinced that the road traveled is the main reward. This person created a company that became an innovator, an engine of progress, thanks to which technology became as we know it today. And one of the reasons for his success was that he worked not for money, but for the desire to do something important every day. This is, of course, about Steve Jobs and Apple, which he founded with the talented programmer Steve Wozniak in his garage. It is unlikely that there is a person in the world who is unfamiliar with the Apple company. But there are some striking facts that not everybody knows about. For example, the fact that one of the world's most powerful companies was on the verge of going bust several times 30 years ago, partly because the founder was fired from his own firm for 11 years. Or the fact that it was thanks to Steve Jobs that many iconic Pixar cartoons were born. One of them was Toy Story. You are watching the Brand Core channel, and today we will tell you an amazing story about the ups and downs of Apple and its founders. Guys, only a small percentage of people that watch our videos are actually subscribed. If you end up enjoying this video, consider subscribing. It's free and you can always change your mind. Enjoy the video. Steve Jobs was born on February 24, 1955, and life immediately threw him the first challenge. His own mother gave up her son. The boy was lucky to quickly find foster parents, a married couple, Paul and Clara Jobs, who could not have their own children. Since childhood, Steve has been a gifted boy. The craving for electronics appeared in him by the age of 12. One day, he decided to help a physics teacher assemble an electric current frequency sensor, but was faced with a shortage of necessary parts. The fact that the boy didn't have enough money for it didn't stop him. A very unusual idea of solving the problem came in the bright mind of Steve. Plucking up the courage, he found the phone number of William Hewlett, the founder of Hewlett-Packard, and called him.
This'll date me, but I called up Bill Hewlett when I was 12 years old, and he lived in Palo Alto. His number was still in the phone book. And he answered the phone himself. He said, yes? I said, hi, I'm Steve Jobs. I'm 12 years old. I'm a student in high school, and I want to build a frequency counter. And I was wondering if you had any spare parts I could have.
You'll agree, not every child will think of such a thing, and a fewer will be so direct and at the same time ambitious that they may call an adult a busy person who is clearly not up to children's problems. However, the conversation took place, and in 20 minutes, Stephen was able to impress William so pleasantly that Hewlett sent the boy all the necessary details the same day. A bit later, he even invited Steve to an internship at HP. It's interesting that Hewlett-Packard began its work with two friends who made their first inventions in the garage. Very soon, my friends, you, like us, will be amazed at the similarity of the first steps of Apple and HP. Perhaps it was because Hewlett was primarily an inventor and not a businessman that prompted him to help the talented boy. Being in high school, Steve met Stephen Wozniak, who was already a college student at the time. Wozniak was seriously interested in programming, so the two immediately became friends. Later, they even practiced together in HP. For a while, Jobs worked as a video game designer at Atari, but attracted by the hippie movement, he quit that job. To tell the truth, didn't give him pleasure and went to India. Wozniak, meanwhile, got a job in HP as an engineer and also began to attend the Homebrew Computer Club. Together with like-minded people, he dreamed of creating his own personal computer, which would not be the size of an entire room. Already in 1975, dreams came true. The first computer kit, the Altair 8800, appeared on the market, but it was sold without computer software and it was very difficult to use for ordinary people. But despite all of the disadvantages, the main achievement of the invention was the following. It showed the prospects that it is possible to create a portable computer. Wozniak could not afford Altair, so he decided to create a ready-made device with his own hands, which would not require assembly and which could be understood by an ordinary person. In the same year, he designed a computer that had a wooden box as its body, and the RAM was… how much do you think? The RAM was 4 kilobytes. Unlike Altair, Wozniak's invention had a keyboard and a display to observe the results obtained. He demonstrated his prototype to HP and then to Atari, but contrary to expectations, both companies refused to develop it. As Wozniak himself recalled, people always have a tendency to doubt something new. My invention was no exception in those days. But Jobs wasn't afraid of change. When he returned from India and learned about the invention of a friend, he suggested not to hang around the doors of other people's companies, but establish their own. Well, it was a risky decision. But there were only two options: either abandon your brainchild and forget your dream, or take a bold step. Wozniak agreed, thus opening a new page not only in his life, but also in the world history of computer technology. On April 1, 1976, unknown guys from the suburbs created the Apple Company. According to legend, the name was suggested by Jobs, who at that time was interested in the Apple diet. At the same time, the name had one important advantage, which does credit to the entrepreneurial talent of Jobs. The first letters of the word put Apple ahead of Atari in the phone book. And if today there is a battle between companies for the first lines in search queries, then it was the phone book that was the guide between people and companies. The company's logo was decided to make Newton sitting under an apple tree, and its first product was the same development of Wozniak, Apple I. The production of the first batch needed funds. Jobs had to sell his favorite van and Wozniak a premium calculator. In general, they succeeded to get only $1,300. But it wasn't enough to rent the space. So the first office was located right in the house of Jobs' parents. A little later, the company moved to the garage. At the same time, Steve's mother served as a secretary, which gave the company some kind of prestige. This is how the giant of the technology market started its work from the garage. The first Apple I computers were assembled without any special equipment and machines. House of parents, intelligence, and enthusiasm. That's all that was at the disposal of the heroes. That's all well and good, but was the market ready for a new business shark? A reasonable question. From the very first days of its existence, the company faced a problem. No one wanted to buy the invention. Only an acquaintance from Homebrew Computer Club, Paul Terrell, agreed to take the product for sale. By the way, his bite shop was the world's first computer store. Yes, at that time, just not so many people believed in the future of computers. It was thought that it was a temporary toy for eccentric users. But the bold and ambitious Steve Jobs ignored the public opinion, stubbornly continuing to believe in success, and to everyone's surprise, the batch was sold out in just a week. The cost of the computer was $666.66. Such a strange figure was a whim of Wozniak. Still, he was more concerned with the technical side of the project, and Jobs was responsible for sales and promotion. But success quickly gave way to problems. The proceeds from the sale for further development were sorely lacking. It got to the point when the friends even thought about closing the production. At that moment, Jobs stopped communicating with people, locked in a room for a while, calling all the banks for money all day long, and unfortunately, all of them refused. But the drive and obsession with the idea still did the trick. Steve managed to meet a millionaire, Armas Markula, who invested $92,000 in the project. And then he did it again, invested $250,000 on a Bank of America credit line. For us, this is a great example of how a person, despite everything, continues to fight for the purpose of his life. Circumstances changed dramatically. Now Wozniak felt free and could finally focus on his favorite work, without limiting himself in the budget. Thanks to this, the company released the Apple II in 1980. The investors' money wasn't spent in vain. The new model boasted color graphics, a device for playing sound, a file system, and other innovations. Jobs proposed to put the computer components in a plastic case, which allowed the Apple II to stand out favorably from the unsightly sheet metal boxes of other microcomputers. It is quite expected that such innovations, Apple II was doomed to success. The company earned more than $130 million on this model, which became its ticket to the American Stock Exchange. But another rough patch was already close. In 1981, Wozniak miraculously survived a plane crash, after which he suffered from amnesia for several years, as a result of which he left the company. In addition, in 1983, IBM appeared on the market. It very quickly surpassed Apple. Since the working capital was credit, Apple was managed by a board of directors, whose decisions often went against the principles of Jobs. Being a leader by nature, Steve no longer felt like a headmaster in his own company. And yet, he continued to motivate people in some incredible way, creating a powerful energy at work. His hard work and ability to infect employees with enthusiasm allowed Apple to stay on top for a little longer and even create the famous Macintosh. The Macintosh was released in 1984, and as a breakthrough machine with a graphical interface and a mouse, was able to compete with IBM products. A friend of Bill Gates said that even she used a Macintosh, and that says a lot. But in the end, Steve's commitment to creating perfect products led to the fact that people began to run out of steam. Fixated on success, Steve worked very hard and demanded the same approach from others. Jobs even spent the night in his office so that he wouldn't have to spend the morning commuting from home. Because of the competition, the company's business was not going well. And one day, Jobs decided to hire John Sculley, a former Pepsi director, to lead Apple. This decision was fatal. John turned out to be a great marketer, but he didn't share Jobs' view on management. As a result, he influenced the decision of the directors in 1985 to fire Steve. After Jobs' departure, the company released its first Macintosh portable laptop, the Macintosh PowerBook, and also Mac 7.0 operating system. And despite the fact that Apple managed to stay afloat, things were not going well. People even argued about which of the competitors would eventually acquire the remnants of the company for themselves. At this time, Steve was engaged in the next company, which was developing its own operating system and creating computers for scientists. Then, Steve acquired the Pixar studio. Yes, Jobs greatly influenced the formation of this company and helped it to determine the vector of development. Next also succeeded in its activities, and on December 20th, 1996, Apple decided to buy it. Of course, with the condition that Jobs returns to the post of CEO. Returned to the place he belonged, Steve organized a big purge of the staff and outdated developments. In his own example, Jobs proved that even when you seem to have lost everything you had, you can get a grip and continue to do what you love. As Jobs himself said,
"I didn't see it then, but it turned out that getting fired from Apple was the best thing that could have ever happened to me. The heaviness of being successful was replaced by the lightness of being a beginner again, less sure about everything. It freed me to enter one of the most creative periods of my life."
Under the leadership of Jobs, on August 15, 1998, a very successful iMac computer was released. The following year was marked by two releases, the Mac OS X operating system and Apple's first digital player, the iPod, which revolutionized the music industry. In 2003, the world got acquainted with iTunes Store. Apple was the first to offer to buy music by the piece, being able to listen to it at any time on the computer or on iPod. And here we are at the most significant moment in the history of the brand. In 2007, Steve Jobs introduced the first iPhone.
Today, Apple is going to reinvent the phone.
A year later, the MacBook Air was born, but that wasn't enough for Jobs. In 2010, he presented the iPad. A series of innovations led to the fact that in August 2011, the company received the status of the most expensive in the world. Only then did Steve Jobs finally allow himself to stop and leave the post. Back in 2003, Steve was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, but even this did not stop him, and Jobs continued to enthusiastically do what he loved. Steve died on October 5, 2011. He left behind a company that is still the market leader on all continents, and only for the first quarter of 2019, Apple's revenue amounted to $64 billion. I can't believe that this industry titan appeared in the garage of two guys who just wanted to bring something new to their favorite field. As Jobs said,
"Your work is going to fill a large part of your life, and the only way to be truly satisfied is to do what you believe is great work. And the only way to do great work is to love what you do."
And indeed, Apple's fathers simply did what they loved. And so they stubbornly pursued their goals despite the ups and downs. Steve Jobs never let other people's opinions lead him astray and became a role model for millions of people around the world. Guys, write in the comments how you feel about the products of Apple and Steve Jobs. And do not forget to leave a like if you enjoyed the video. Thank you for watching, and see you soon.